I'm going to pass it over to Scott for Core AI for Cloudsuite.
All right. Thank you, Shane. Thanks, everyone, for your time this afternoon. My name's Scott Whitson, a business consultant with our Edge Solutions team here with Central Data. Today's discussion is really going to stem from a talk that I did at a TUG conference this year, the user group, if you're not familiar. And so in 2024, I did an initial discussion just about, what is AI? We're hearing AI buzz. We're hearing this buzzword. What is it? And, where is it headed potentially, right? So back in 2024, we were looking at and we were hearing a lot about generative AI. So if you think back in 2024, a year ago, we were hearing about Infor Gen AI, which we're now seeing and getting to play with and experience and hear more about with the Velocity Suite. We had Chat GPT, and if you follow any of the more technical aspects of it, the GPT 4.0, which was really big at the time, and we were looking more at enhanced natural language processing. So, taking natural language, just speech, and converting it into something else, something structured, something that a computer can use. So back in 2024, we started to hear about this term called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generative Chat. So retrieval augmented, meaning that these chat GPTs, these AI chat bots are going out, grabbing information to aid in how they construct an answer. And we've got documentation, internal and external meetings and documents being stored. We saw that come to fruition if you utilize Microsoft Copilot or Google Gemini, those sorts of things. And then in 2024, it sounded like things were headed with what we call agents and multi-agent systems. So these different AI programs integrating together with tools for problem solving. So an example here, a sales AI agent assembling a quote based on a customer's feedback, and then taking that quote that was AI generated and handing it off to a different AI agent with different specialties that is used to receive that quote and generate pricing based off of a more analysis, a pricing model. So that was in 2024. And we saw, I'd like to say that we saw generative AI really explode. I mean, right now we're seeing this Gen AI from Infor as well. We're going to talk more about the different models. And then certainly this retrieval augmented generative chat has come to fruition as well. So being able to chat with your documents, being able to talk with documentation, that has come to fruition. This last one, this multi-agent systems, I think back in 2024, and this was, I guess it was around March, April when I put that together, 2024. I can't say with confidence that came true, but it is certainly where I think things are going still. So really, the conversation that I started at TUG, and I want to continue with you, is where the current developments are, where things are headed. And it really starts with, in this AI realm, this artificial intelligence realm, a lot of what we're focused on are these large language models, or LLMs. So when you see that term LLM, or if you hear about ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, DeepSeek, all of these are just different models. And the truth is that they're developing fast. So back a couple of months ago, this one model from DeepSeek was an open source development from coming out of China that put a lot of cost pressure on the American counterparts. And so saw a lot of cost cutting. So this is a rapidly evolving space with these different models. They're getting cheaper. We'll talk about context a little bit. The window for context, so the different things that they're able to keep in memory all at once, is growing, and it's evolving very rapidly. One aspect to this, because these are changing so rapidly, one design aspect that we've kept in mind at Central Data is to approach the design of the software that we're going to talk about in Pearl AI to be model agnostic. So depending on future developments, these different models can be replaced. This last point here, I got the glue. So when you see this LLM, I want you to think of it as the glue that is tying these different systems together. We're going to expand on that more, but when I say LLM, I want you to think it's the glue tying these different systems together. So a large part of today's discussion and a large part of where I think things are going here for AI development is the concept of tool usage. So you're seeing this now with some of the commercial programs that are available to end users, where you can have a search that is augmented by the AI agent going out and grabbing information from the web, for example. One service, Perplexity is the name of it, is based around that. So Google Gemini, you have the idea of a deep research mode where it's going out and it's pulling information from the web and it's compiling an answer for you. Database queries, going out and grabbing information from a database in order to satisfy your question. We'll talk more about that. That RAG, retrieval augmented generation idea, the concept being here with this vector databases, we're storing the meaning of what the document contains. So for example, if you're moving from SX to Cloudsuite Distribution and you've got a pricing training that teaches you how to use the software and how to run your business based on the Cloudsuite Distribution software, loading that document, it understands your business processes, it understands semantically the way that people are talking about your pricing. If you've got a colloquial term for a different level of pricing, that your team refers to certain prices on, that can be loaded into an agent to help facilitate communicating on the different data within your system. So one last component that we're going to talk about, we're going to touch today, is called human in the loop pattern. So really, this is what we're used to now. It's chat, those chat, the different chat interfaces that you type in or speak with, and it comes back and forth. Really, that is a AI agent who is utilizing that chat interface to get information from you to do something on, right? What we're also seeing is the idea of these AI agents, and this was back in 2024, that was my last point. We're starting to see teamwork and reasoning models. So the idea here is similar to our own development, right? We eventually started as humans specializing. Scott was really good at picking out the different berries for the village, and then Shane was really good at hunting down the antelope, and we figured that we should put Shane on hunting and Scott on berry picking. And by doing that, by specializing and having the right tools and having the right people for the job, we got more out of the system. That similar concept is happening with these AI agents. So you have AI agents that are specified for specific prompts. They look at, they produce different results based on the prompting, and they have different tools. So one example here, I've got delegation to specialists on a team. So we might have something where I have to develop a technical document. I might work with a planning agent to make sure that everything that I need is in there in this document. I might work with a research agent that pulls data from some documentation or the internet. Technical writer, pass it on to this technical writer to compile the document. And then a proofread and inspect agent could be prompted, knowing my style pattern, my writing patterns, understanding where some of my potential pitfalls with writing are, or some of my gaps in writing, and help correct that automatically based on some of the recommendations that it's built over time, seeing my writing style. So the idea is that content, we've got these 4 different agents with different specializations and different tools working together to deliver a product for the user. I mentioned earlier that deep research modes becoming available. So one good example is Google Gemini right now, just from a chat interface perspective. They've got a deep research button on, I think it's Gemini 2.5, where it will go out, grab some information, and it'll tell you to come back in a few minutes and process that data. So we're moving away from this back and forth chat paradigm to giving an AI agent a task. It's going out, it's figuring out how to solve that problem, and it's coming back with the results. So some of those pieces that down at the bottom here, we've got 2 tools here. Tool usage, I talked about executing SQL statements or utilizing a database for information, and performing retrieval augmented generation, that going out and finding documents that are related to the person's search and answering the question with that additional knowledge. At the very beginning, I said LLMs are like the glue that kind of ties this all together. And so really these AI agents, you can think of it in terms of, from a mathematical perspective, the idea of graph theory. And so on my left here, at the top, I've got my LLM. And so I'm interfacing, I'm chatting with my language model. And so I might say to the language model, hey, what are my open orders for warehouse number 8? And so the LLM, being the glue, says, okay, can I answer that question? Well, I've got a tool over here that I can use to execute queries on a database. I can research, I can execute a search off of this knowledge base that I have, or I can present a result. Maybe I don't know the answer and I can just say, hey, I don't know the answer. So my language model here sits here and decides based on my rules that I've given it. And it says, okay, open orders for warehouse 8. That sounds like a question that I know that I have the access to data for. I'm going to execute a SQL search. So it executes a SQL search based on that SQL that it creates. And if that data is correct, or if the answer is correct, it's confident in the answer in the SQL query that was generated, it presents that to finish, presents to the end user. So it used a tool. First of all, it understood the context of the question, and it decided that it did have a tool to answer that, used that tool and presented the result. Consequently, we have a tool to execute the search. Maybe I ask a question, how am I setting up a pricing record? Something along those lines, right? So it knows that, well, I don't really have access to the knowledge. I don't have the access to data in my SQL queries. So, but I do know that I can answer any Cloudsuite questions by executing a search. So it's going to go down, execute a search, and get some relevant feedback based on the data that we've stored and present the result. So at the very basic level of an agent, we've got that large language model, and we've got some what you call prompting or instructions to provide to the language model on how to make decisions, what it's capable of, what each of its tools do, and then you begin chatting with it. So how does that play into Infor.os, Cloudsuite distribution in general? So really, when I think of these large language models as glue, it really opens up the different tools that we use currently, and how do you integrate those into a model and structure tool usage where you can define how a tool is used. So when I jump down, we're going to jump down to Data Fabric here. So as we look at Perl, we're going to take a look at some Data Fabric queries. And when we ask data-related questions, Perl is going to be synthesizing a select statement out of SQL to answer questions where it's able. So you might be thinking with that data, so we're accessing the data fabric, right? And the data fabric's got all of our information. We are, part of the model here for this tool is to train it and curate the data. We don't have the open tables within the CSD tables coming over into the data fabric. Those aren't the things that it's querying. We've got a curated view of the information, and I've trained Perl on how to query that information. And that really ties into Infor.os in general and the API integration with the continuing development in Infor.os and continuing development in APIs. It's going to be more and more important to be able to utilize those APIs. So as a part of Infor.os API integration, that's how we're communicating with the data fabric. All right, so let's take a look here at Perl and Infor.os. And part of today's demonstration with Perl, she's got access to a couple of tools. So right now we've got a base database just with information regarding Cloudsuite distribution and its usage. Got a data fabric tool usage. And within that, we've got some API usage here. So I'm going to jump over to Perl. And so I'm in a demo environment here. Quickly, I'm in my company 500. And if I expand out my widgets here, I'm looking over at my Insight group. And here I have Perl in the form of a chat agent. So very quickly, this chat interface aspect really is that idea of the human in the loop. And so it's asking me what it needs to do, right? And so if, as you walk away from this today, I want you to kind of think about that. with this chat interface, it is asking me what it needs to do. So if we remove the chat interface and programmatically tell an agent what it needs to do, we then have kind of a background automated task workflow going. So that's the aspect of this agent that kind of bleeds into automation and working on repetitive tasks or research tasks to be able to kind of do that in the background to help someone. But looking at this chat agent here, so what is Pearl? Let's just start off with, give her an easy one. So she knows who she is. Pearl is an AI-powered agent. It's ready to fetch you distribution answers. So it's made the decision. It knows who it is, programmatically, right? Additionally, looking at another tool, how do I set up a pricing record? I'll throw a softball question at her. So what's going on in the background here is that if you go back to the idea on that graph, the LLM, the language model, is parsing how do I set up a pricing record, understanding what tool it needs to utilize in order to get that information, and loads that information for us. Second here. Oops. She couldn't find that. Try it now. We're supposed to be getting some answers back from the document store, and it's supposed to be parsing that information. Let me try one other thing here. Yeah, so I'm sorry. It's of course, it's not working at the moment here to pull that document store. All right. So same Perl. While I look at that, I'm going to do a other tool usage here. So that pricing record is supposed to go over to the documents and pull information on how to set up a pricing record utilizing PDSP, right? And so supposed to be able to ask for different pricing levels. I'll get back on that. For separate tool usage, so for example, I can say how many orders are in the picked stage. And so that orders are in the pick stage. So there's a lot of contextual information associated with that sentence. So orders in the pick stage, we've got the answer. There are 31 orders in the pick stage. And so there's a lot that happened in between that question and that answer that I want to break down a little bit. So again, with that LLM being the glue in between these different tools, the data that this is grabbing is from the data lake. And so we've pulled sales information. You want to pull a curated a curated piece of information where it's going to be able to pull all of the information in a single select query and it knows what each field is contextually within your business. So people might ask how many orders are in the pick stage, or how many orders are in the, how many open orders do we have? So an open order, we need to understand contextually that it is in the ordered, picked, or shipped stage for our business. And so all of that training is built into each one of these tools. And so we currently have 156 open orders in my demo company. Just going back over. So again, to recap on those two tools, we have that LLM that is parsing what I say into, okay, can I use this tool or this tool? It's going out, it's asking that question, it's creating the SQL query. That is being sent using a data lake API out to the data lake, grabbing that curated data to go back and respond and present the result to me. So that is a sales example. And when we have those different curated pieces of data. So for example, if we have sales, we might have purchasing, and we might have inventory level data. So we can add or remove different tools, either based on the department or the different users, to lock down the security on the different aspects of data that it has access to. So long term, let's see here. Long term, from a data management and being able to query different information, the idea for being able to load additional training, if you've got as a business consultant working in implementations, we develop a lot of information tied around the ways that you run your business using Cloudsuite Distribution. So a lot of that information, it's useful during implementation, it's useful after your go live, but continuing education for your end users, having something for them to be able to reference, this information would always be available with Pearl here. So off to the side here, off to the side, I was looking at, so how do I set up a pricing record? And then it's going back and getting that information for me. So we'll do a new chat, and how do I enter a blanket order? So again, she should know to look over at the documentation that we've provided on that information. And then she's provided that initial information for that blanket order and sales entry order. So additional information can be provided. So to add context. So for any folks that were using SX, or you're certainly comfortable with Cloudsuite Distribution and the acronyms that you can utilize in the top right, then adding context, adding those acronyms is just another data store where Pearl will be able to answer questions from. That type of work. All right, Shane, that's the initial aspect of Pearl that I wanted to cover for you today.
That's great. That's great, Scott. I don't know if you're supposed to say good girl after she returns the result, but she did a nice job there. She recovered.
Yeah.
We do have a question that came through from Holly. She says, can you train it to use common internal language? For example, we have some people call them orders, some call them slips, and some call them tickets.
That is a great question. So that hits on the idea of that context, right? So we've got different verbiage, we've got different definitions for things. So that slips is a prime example of this. So as long as we provide that information to Perl, in what's called that prompt, that instruction set for each tool, then yes, you can tweak that to accommodate that language, which is really kind of the sweet spot for that large language model. I keep saying that it's the glue between these different tools, but it's also the glue between the tool and the human using it, right? So adapting our language to fit with those different tools is a part of the job. Yeah.